All right, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Been Loud podcast with your host, Ricardo Rice, and my co-host,
Simone Cherie.
All right, we are back with just us, and it's fine. 'Cause I'm on the warpath today, so I'm ready to go. So, Simone, what we got? What we got?
So we haven't had a chance to talk about the updates for the reconciliation bill. I almost said the big, beautiful bill, and I'm trying not to regurgitate
I'd have thrown
that
you out the studio
stupid
too.
phrase.
I would have thrown you out the studio.
We have not talked about the reconciliation bill, which I think we absolutely should. We also didn't get a chance to talk about Adriana Smith. If you have not heard that name, you should definitely know it. So that's other really important talking point we've got to spend some time on today. And then I know you mentioned some news that it's going to be really unfortunate for the economy, not for a college, which we've talked about before. But it's a big thing for education. It's a big thing for workforce. So I think we should also get into that.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the budget. Let's start with the state of the budget. So essentially, currently, we'll just talk about where we are. We are now in a situation where the Senate still has the opportunity to provide some form of pushback against where we are with reconciliation. What we do know, and what I don't know what some people are aware of or not, this is a bill that heavily favors gun dealers, heavily favors organizations in AI. That will be a positive thing if you have property taxes over $500,000. So probably property values north of $5 million. This is going to be a really unfortunate bill if you are a student with a student loan. So if you're a borrower, if you receive Medicaid, if you receive SNAP or supplemental nutrition assistance programs. In particular, going back to the student loans, as of May, payments resumed and courts have paused some of the most generous repayment options that people have been used to for years. So the risk of default is very real for a lot of people who are making, who are trying to make what they can make, but considered working class or lower middle class, but who have gone to college and have student loan debt. We're talking about wage garnishment, tax refund garnishment, a risk to your Social Security benefits, not to mention, of course, the immediate hit to your credit.
The Social Security benefits?
Oh, yeah, if you default on your student loans, absolutely.
Oh my God, I can take your Social Security.
Absolutely.
For older people.
Yeah, and there's also immediate impact to credit, of course.
Oh, yeah,
so,
I experienced that one. So, yeah, it just kind of showed up and was like, wait, why did my credit score drop that low?
I mean, for most people who can't make their student loan payment, right, which most people are going to be looking for some sort of payment plan, whether it's like an IDR, income-driven plan, or similar. But the court pausing some of those options are the most flexible, where in the past couple of years, maybe $50 or $100 was like a student loan payment that people would sign up for, would see if they can make. Some of those options are going to be off the table now. And so that's going to make it even more difficult for people to just at least maintain what they're able to pay for.
Well, the question is, so I read that the government can only garnish 15% of your income. So the question is, are they going to abide by that? Because honestly, that option is probably a more viable option than you trying to pay, because these student loan requests are like $2,000 a month at this point. So I'm like, I'd rather take a chance on the garnishment, because if they can only garnish 15%, at least I can work with that. But trying to pay you $2,000 and $3,000 a month,
maybe you can work with that. But I think for a lot of people, it's going to completely hurt. I mean, a lot of people don't have 15% to take after taxes from their take-home pay. And again, then we're talking about tax refund garnishment, all the other consequences that happen along the way. Let's say you did have a little credit card. If you get an impact to your credit and then all of a sudden your credit goes away, now all of a sudden you've gone from having a credit card to you owe your entire balance right now. You've lost your credit, right? So all of those other financial consequences. If you're a renter, the next time you go to rent a place, will you be able to rent a place? Will the rate be exorbitant? When you need to renew your car insurance premium, if your credit goes down, guess how much your premium is going to be? It's heavily impacted by your actual credit score.
I didn't realize that you said all that. That's very scary and very concerning.
Incredibly.
In a world where people are already drowning, let's just throw this on. I guess this is where I get confused. I'm like, what is the goal at this stage with this administration? What is the goal?
The goal to me looks to be is to squeeze as much money as possible out of the budget. To squeeze as much money as possible out of the budget. And the reality is, there is money, and the money's just going elsewhere. So squeezing it out of the Department of Education, or squeezing it out of, example for, as we're talking about, like SNAP and Medicaid and other sorts of areas, that they're all being considered entitlements, and just throwing it into tax breaks and tax cuts.
I'm just trying to understand how that works. How does that work? Like, okay, when we say throw that money in tax cuts, what, to offset?
Well, you need money to offer tax cuts. You need money to actually offer tax cuts to different types of groups. So it's like, well, where's that money going to come from? If you're going to give certain people a tax break, how are you going to be able to pay for that?
I didn't know that's how that worked.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, even it's the same is true for all tax breaks and tax credits, even tax credits that do help people that are low income, whether it's like the child care tax credit for example, or the earned income tax credit, all those tax credits mean that people are getting more money, which means they're paying less taxes. So
there has to be a supplement when
it has to come from
so
somewhere.
If I pay $500 and now I'm saying I'm paying $250, there has to be a supplement for that other $250.
Right. Mind you, a lot of experts are saying this is not going to come close to putting a dent in that deep $1 trillion+ deficit that we are currently seeing. A lot of people agree that this is not going to even come close to putting a dent in that. Like not even close. I think what we have become aware of and what people are doing a lot more research on, and I think this will come out once people get through the bill because it's over 1,000 pages. And we did talk about the fact that we just were talking about this, that it was voted on at night, like in the dead of night.
Yeah, they do this like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. They start deliberating when they know, I'm sure half the Democrats are probably gone or doing something else.
Yeah, so it's incredibly long. So a lot of people have not read the bill. I know a lot of people have not read the bill, and they're not necessarily aware of all the favors that are going to come through in this bill, but there's significant favors.
Ugh. I'm just at a loss. I'm like, I don't understand. He campaigned on making things affordable. That was the campaign. For those that fell for it, that was the campaign promise. Oh, that eggs are going to be low and, you're going to have money in your pocket again. And you literally done the adverse. Yeah.
I'm really curious why there hasn't been more conversation about this. We know the market has been in a state of shock for the last several months, but have people looked at their 401ks? And their 401(b)s, if people have taken a look at those and not cried, can you follow me and tell me what you're doing and how you're coping with looking at it? Because it's truly devastating.
The concept with 401ks that you're not supposed, it's just supposed to exist. You're not supposed to touch it. You're really not supposed, it's supposed like a unicorn. It's like, you have it, but you're not really supposed to touch it or look at it unless something serious happens. So I really think that's what's happening. People haven't looked at it because it's like a myth that you have, but you're not supposed to touch it like a treasure box or something. But when you go to touch it, you're going to be very surprised. Like you've been putting in this thing for 10, 12 years and now there's $2 in there.
So let's talk about just taxes, really, like a really quick breakdown of this, because I did a little bit of digging on this because I wanted to look at some numbers. What would happen if instead of squeezing the life and the benefits out of the brokest people in this country, we looked at the top 5%? So people who are currently the top 5% are considered people who are making $300,000 and up. That group of people pays an average of federal taxes of about 23%. They do not necessarily pay a lot of income taxes, but they may pay corporate taxes. There may be other types of taxes attributed to them. They pay about 23%. That's the top 5% of income earners. Middle class people, so like the middle of a median, pay about 28%. And that heavily includes wages. So like the actual income that people are earning. So the middle class pays, if you were 5% more than the top 5% outright. So what would happen if the top 5% had to pay more? If the top 5% had to pay now 28%, so the same amount that the average person's paying, like what if we just squeeze the money from them, an extra 5%? The top 5% account for 1/3 of all the money earned in the US. That's how much money they have. So if their tax rate goes from 23% to 28%, 5% increase, that would be over $250 billion a year in additional federal revenue.
That's ridiculous.
We will be able to close the gap on the $1 trillion deficit in 4 years by the time this got out of office.
But we do realize that this big, beautiful bill also tries to raise the debt ceiling, which was another thing he campaigned on.
Exactly right. What can we do with $250 billion? Universal pre-K, universal childcare subsidy, free community college, on top of significantly reducing the federal deficit, like we just talked about over the course of 4 years, expanding the earned income tax credit, expanding the monthly child tax credit, and the major investments in public housing that we know that we desperately need because every major city is turned into a tent city.
Literally. Or a car city. That's a new thing. People living in their cars. It's amazing. Like on TikTok, I see it more and more now. People living in cars. They try to do storage spaces, but storage spaces like, nah, you can't live here, bro. Like we're not doing this. That's not what this is.
It would close the post-tax income gap significantly because the wealthiest people do not pay tax on the money coming in. Most of the wealthy people in this country pay taxes on things like capital gains taxes. They have like payroll taxes if they're business owners. Higher earners benefit significantly more from our tax code than we do. Every single time you're looking at your paycheck and you're wondering, why is there so much taxes? Why is there so much tax? And every time you hear these rich, white, old men complaining about, and the Republicans complaining about how much taxes are too high, and now they're cutting taxes for the wealthiest people, they're not talking about you and your little paycheck.
Okay.
They're talking about their taxes. They don't get a paycheck. A lot of them do not work. So it's
that old money.
It's old money. The actual tax code is not really, it's built on income. It's built on the working people. But the top 5% of those people literally could pay more in taxes. They pay less in taxes than us. And if they paid as much, they would outpay what we pay. What 95% of people earn, they would literally pay more taxes than us.
I would love to hear the other side of this argument. What is the argument for not doing that?
SNAP is wasteful. People abuse the system.
Yeah, but like you said, these are drops in the buckets
people
when you look at
work.
the huge, the intake. These are drops in the buckets of stuff they're talking about. And what happens when these people don't get these benefits and they're displaced?
Their argument is also that the countries that do this, Nordic countries in particular, that they are socialist countries. Those are communist countries.
Really?
Those are the arguments. I'm summarizing them. I probably sound audibly disgusted because I am, but those are their arguments. The wealthy make most of their money from investments, especially the top 1%. They don't make money from anything else but interest income, rental income, capital gains, dividends, interest. They don't make their money by working manually like you and I do, and they pay way less in taxes. Some of their taxes are literally 0%. Some of them don't have to pay taxes. It could be 0% on a lot of their taxes.
Because they don't have income? That's
because we treat wealth differently. We treat stocks differently. So if you have capital gains tax, if you have dividends taxes, those are 0%, maybe 15 or 20% max. We just don't punish wealth earned from other areas the way that we punish wealth earned from work. The wages that we earn to work, we tax at up to like 40%, depending on how much you're earning on a paycheck. They don't tax other income that way.
Well, I told them if they decide if Social Security is going away, then stop taking out my check. I can put that money in a 401k or something. Like that's the next conversation we need to have. If y'all are going to do away with Social Security, then stop taking it out of my check because it's not going to benefit me. Which I'm actually sad because me and my dad used to fight about this all the time. And I've talked about this before. He was like, well, you need to save your money for retirement, for your SSI. And I was like, Daddy, it's not going to be around. He thought I was joking. And now here we are. I'm like, Dad, I told you when I get older, this is not going to be an option.
No.
So again, let me live, get off my neck, and stop taking it out of my check. And while we at it, let's talk about the other stuff that comes out of our checks. If we're not going to get benefit from it, because that was the ideology, then stop taking out our check. Because what you going to do with that money? What you going to do with that money?
They should.
It's ridiculous.
Will they? I don't know. But while they're talking about increasing the age of retirement every other year, which I know also pisses off our parents and grandparents because they didn't work this hard to plan to retire just so you can raise the age. Real world example, really quick, just to like end this conversation. So there's 3 different examples we should look at. Look at a teacher. We'll look at a wealthy investor, and we'll look at one of the ultra wealthy 1% type people that we're talking about here. So if you're a teacher, your income type is wages. You earn $60K a year. Your tax rate is about 28%. You're going to pay over $16,000 in taxes. If you're a wealthy investor, so if you're an investor, let's say you're in that top 5%, not the top 1, but top 5%. Let's say you have $1 million coming in every single year. Your tax rate is 8% less. It's 20%. So you're paying $200,000 in taxes technically, but your tax rate is 20%. It's less than a teacher. And if you are ultra wealthy, in which case you don't actually need income, most wealthy people do not ever sell assets. They borrow against their assets to fund their lifestyle, and then they pass those. They don't necessarily have any income every year. They live off of their assets. So they don't pay any taxes. They pay 0% taxes.
So you're living off ROI.
And the dollar amount that they pay in taxes every year is $0 because they never need to sell. So they never incur any capital gains or whatever like that.
So they literally get by because they don't have paychecks. That's basically what this is.
Literally. So the structure of income matters just as much as the amount. The tax code heavily gives advantages to people who have investment income way over earned income. It's how the wealthy accumulate more wealth. It's how the wealthy pay less in taxes. It's how poor people pay more in taxes. So apparently use too many public benefits as well.
So this is literally a capitalist society. This is the offset of a capitalist society where you're rewarded for being rich.
For not working. For not working. The work that they're always talking about we need to do. The work requirements that they're imposing right now on able-bodied individuals, or every able-bodied individual should be working. And anyone who has a dependent over the age of 7 should not be receiving a benefit. Whether or not they're working, when the wealthy do not work. That's what I need people to appreciate. Wealthy people do not work.
I'm trying to get to this dependency thing. How do we get from 18 to 7 So if you don't know what we're talking about the dependency age, meaning how long a kid can stay on, let's say, your insurance or things of that magnitude. That age was about 18. I think it actually went to like 23, 26 maybe, but it was definitely adulthood. They scaled that down to 7. What can a 7-year-old do to sustain their life, to live?
I think it's about the parent. Like, what's the difference between a parent having to care for a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old? Like, how does that parent need less support is the real question, right? Because the child is not receiving the benefit, but the household is. And you're telling me if my kid is over 7, that I no longer need the benefit. So you don't. So I know you don't have 13-year-old boys in your house. You don't have 14-year-old boys. You know how much teenagers eat?
That part. Small kids too. They want 3 meals a day.
If I have teenage, when we had our nephews over the house, we were out of house and home. They were eating outside in a weekend.
Especially
like that was the
boys.
month grocery bill doubled. I swear.
Especially growing boys, they eat like it's going out of style.
Insane.
It's a hobby.
They
like
don't stop.
they eat. It's a hobby. Like I don't.
But not over the age of 7.
Well, this is yet
insane.
another thing which segues us to the recent thing of them defunding Job Corps. Make sense to me. I don't. When I saw this, I said, "How did Job Corps even get on y'all radar? How did we even get there?" I'm like, "Do you know what Job Corps does, especially for minority kids? Honestly, especially for black boys. If we're honest, especially for black boys, Job Corps is almost the alternative. You just cannot." I don't want to say function, but if you just can't seem to make it in a school system, the next option is go to Job Corps. Why? Because Job Corps will teach you a workable skill that will actually pay you money that you don't have to go to school for. In some space, depending on what you do, it houses you. So you literally could send your child, a child who needs an alternative lifestyle, you could literally send them to Job Corps, not have to worry about what they're doing, where they are. They're learning a skill. They have a place to live. They're enhancing their social skills. Now we've taken that away from them. When I saw the TikTok videos of all those kids leaving those facilities, because apparently they were scheduled to close on June 30th, which got moved to June 2nd, which is pretty much Monday. So to see this exodus of all these primarily young people, minority kids, leaving these areas, these spaces with pillows and blankets, and it's like, so where are they supposed to go now? Where are they supposed to go now? And what are they supposed to do? These are typically troubled teens, who might need a little extra help or need a little guidance in life. What are they supposed to do now?
Well, I think more importantly, they're our young workforce, right? Like they're the next generation of the workforce. So regardless of how we feel about them, regardless of the decisions that they made, we need people working. Like we need people actually engaged in the workforce. We need them to be productive. You need their tax dollars. You need their tax revenue. So the question is like, what are you doing to the economy in the long term? If all these people aren't participating,
well, the scary part
able-bodied.
The scary part is they always have a plan. So this is probably a bigger part of some diabolical scheme I don't even know what their end game is at this point. So what is the end game? Because you're pretty much destroying the future. You want to get rid of Head Start. You want to get rid of SNAP. You've gotten rid of Job Corps. So what exactly is the plan for the future? Because I'm extremely concerned and extremely scared at this point because now you're just throwing kids into the void. No more Job Corps. You're just throwing kids into the void.
Their goal of like reducing the Department of Labor's budget. They're calling it this failed experiment. It's like I feel like this is truly. We talked about this before, but the program serves 50,000 people annually. Lots of elected officials, lots of people have talked about Job Corps, and also how Job Corps has stepped in sometimes to have those students like take place when there's emergencies. And like they've deployed them to emergencies and they've made themselves like not only useful in terms of like improving themselves, but in the need of a literal natural emergency. The closures of those centers means loss of jobs for staff, right? So you just took away all those jobs, forget the students too, but you also taken away all the jobs from people who actually operate the Job Corps.
The instructors and things of that magnitude.
So that's crazy to me on its face. I also think that it feels very much like somebody's just gone senile old uncle has gone in there and decided that they just hate everything and they're just going to remove everything without thinking about, okay, well, so then what do we do? Like, what's the alternative for what we do? Like, there is no alternative. There's no, there's this great booming economy that everybody who's currently in Job Corps, which means that they are like either working towards an equivalency or they finish an equivalency or they don't have a post-secondary degree. They can just go do that. What is that they're going to go do?
Well, now, if you're asking me, if somebody was to ask me, do I think a lot of our systems are broken and need to be enhanced? Absolutely, especially as it pertains to government. Absolutely. Do I think the answer is to go in with a sledgehammer and just start slamming down things with no alternative plan? Absolutely not.
It's stupid.
Make that make sense to me. Okay, so you're going to get rid of Job Corps. The numbers aren't great because you told me the numbers earlier. The numbers aren't great for Job Corps. Okay, fine. Wasn't there an easier way to do this? Couldn't we have said, hey, all of you people that work in Job Corps, these are your numbers, which I think you said was like 40%. These are your numbers. They are not good to say that you've been in existence for a hot minute. Collectively, come up with a better plan that we can sit down or we can work on. You have months. Yeah. Even if you were that insistent, you have 6 months. You have 6 months to improve on this because the people that are working in it probably already have a plan and that they've just been waiting for somebody to ask them. Wouldn't that have been easier than saying, you know what? We don't care where you go. It's the old adage about a party. I don't know where you're going, but you got to get the heck up out of here. It would have been
smarter, right? Because you say that, okay, your graduation rate is about 40%. That's bad. We're shutting you down. Okay, so now not only am I in an institution where I may not have had a graduation rate. Now I'm definitely not gonna be. You know what I mean? It's truly it's just like complaining about anything else. It's like the areas of town that are food deserts. It's nothing but fast food, no grocery stores. Oh, let's just shut down all the fast food because that's not healthy. Well, now what the hell am I gonna do? That don't mean I can afford a grocery store because you took away the fast food.
Actually, that segues us to another one, but I got to keep us here. Yeah. So the fear that I have now is, so what's next? So now we're going to look at programs like TRIO, which I personally benefited from, which is a collegiate thing. TRIO is talent search, education talent search, student support services, and Upward Bound. It's designed it's like a bridge between high school to college. They do college tours. Kids got to stay on college campuses over the summer, high school kids, things of that magnitude. I personally benefited from TRIO programs. So if you did this in one swoop of the pen, what's to say that TRIO programs are not next? Because they kind of almost mirror Job Corps, except at the higher education level. So what's next? Because they didn't even think about this. There wasn't a conversation that didn't happen in a couple of months. It was, I woke up and the headline was, Job Corps is done. And you see this mass exodus of young people with pillows, blankets, and stuff trying to figure out where they're going to go. Because your family's probably the ones that sent you here, or you probably were in some third-party pool that sent you here. Yeah. You can't go back to that. No. So where are you going?
And it's like the basis of earning towards a GED, or again, another credential, some certificate, maybe even an official diploma, and entering a specific field, like a structured pathway to the workforce, was its value. And if it was its value for 40,000 students, which again is not the entire population, but if they're serving 50,000 a year, that's 20,000 students a year. That's a lot of young people. So now what are those young people going to be doing? Are they supposed to be able to, if they weren't in community college before, so how does it become more affordable now? How does a certificate out of their own pocket become possible?
Well, the question becomes now, y'all keep saying that a lack of education is almost parallel to crime. So now you put these kids,
systems explode.
You put them back out to figure out how to survive in life. What do you think they're going to do? They're certainly not going to apply to McDonald's or apply to Burger King. So then you'll be crying in another couple of months about, oh my God, the crime in my neighborhood has skyrocketed. You took these kids out of protected, safe spaces and threw them back into a real world that is actually 10 times harder than it was when they got here.
It is 10 times harder
than when they got there.
And with no alternatives. Trade schools are usually private. They're very expensive. Community colleges are expensive. There's also, tuition, books, housing, all that stuff. Apprenticeships are not everywhere. There's very limited availability. And they often have very strict criminal record requirements. So if you're talking about kids who have been in trouble before, workforce centers, they don't have comprehensive services, right? Job Corps is a place where you could get all of your together. Workforce centers don't do that. And they serve the entire population. This was specifically for people who had a path to the workforce. It's a mess. It's a mess. And I hope that y'all go straight to these wealthy neighborhoods.
Oh my God.
I hope every single child, and some of my little cousins, I'm sure.
We're going to edit this out. Now, Sarah just told you what's going to happen if that happens.
Who have lost your ability to find your path to the workforce, and who may have had stability for the first time in a long time. There's kids coming in and out of the foster system who go to Job Corps.
Yeah, literally.
It is their first time with structure. And they are on their way to being a productive citizen. Go straight to Elon Musk's house. Go straight to these rich people's houses. I hope they rob you all.
Well, it gives you a pipeline that is scary. So if we say, and it also ties into the other little moves that have been made. So if we take these kids out of these safe spaces, these learning spaces, and throw them back into the streets, and they go back to what they know, or they do whatever they can to make money quick, now you have a rise in crime. So now you get the police involved. And if this crime has escalated so fast, now all the immunity that we've been trying to pull away and stuff, and you already gave it back to them, now we're going to start seeing a lot of other behaviors and other actions. So now you're going to see them getting abused. Now you're going to see them manhandling kids And the excuse is, well, crime has escalated, it's on the rise. But you set it in motion when you took these kids out of safe spaces and put them back in the streets. Like, is this what you want? Is this what you one has to wonder? Was this the original plan? Was this the original plan?
That's insane.
Like, I can't get there. But actually, from that, I'm going to segue into what you were talking about, food deserts and things of that magnitude. So apparently, Dr. Jamal Bryant has called for not a boycott of sorts, but more of a call to action from Dollar General recently, because the Target thing apparently went well.
Bankruptcy.
Yeah, apparently it went well. Shine to him, because I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm turning inward. My fear with this is, because he was saying that Dollar General has more stores and more spaces than Target and other bigger places, and they're usually in areas that are food deserts. My fear with this is, what if they close? What if they go under? Because they service underserviced communities. It's kind of like we had a discussion about Family Dollar a year or two ago. What if Dollar General goes under from this? Like, I get what you're saying, because his argument was they don't put back into the community. They get a lot from the community, but they don't put back in the community, which you do kind of see a lot of, like, people that work for Dollar General saying they're overworked, they're never paid well, things of that magnitude. So I get his call to action, but I also feel like we could lose Targets, and who cares? I've never gone to Target. I think maybe once. It serves, I know you love it. It serves no real purpose to me or, middle America. On the other hand, Dollar General does, because we talk about food deserts, but if you don't have anything else in your neighborhood but a Dollar General, and actually you're starting to create Dollar General markets, which are a little more different. If they go under, what happens to those communities?
Just blight.
I understand what he's asking for. But if they get bombarded, because his request was, start calling them, start making demands that they put back of Dollar General, start making them kind of force their hand to give back to communities that you're really gaining from, whether it be employment, whether it be money to keep your stores open. I understand the call to action, but I also feel like this is a more dire situation than dealing with a Target. A community can live without. Actually, Target is really only in more affluent areas anyway. They don't just pop up everywhere. That's Walmart's. They're in more affluent areas anyway. You could live without a Target. Can those communities survive without a Dollar General? And I don't think the answer is yes.
No.
So I think that one needs to be rethought a little bit more.
And that's something that local governments could do something about, though, right? Like, local government has a huge say in how businesses can operate there. Now, that doesn't mean businesses will be attracted to being there. If local government has a lot of requirements for hire our folks, pay folks a certain amount of whatever, make sure you stop pollution, and make sure you keep the actual situation not looking like, Baghdad, then that can scare that can scare away.
You just had that sit on your head, Baghdad,
that
just
can
sitting on your head.
Businesses, right? Which isn't good either, right? The point is to have a successful business, not to have absolutely no business and no alternative there. But they could do something. They have control over that. They have a say over that. I don't think we're going to see this administration.
Oh, absolutely not.
Say something like, "Oh yeah, businesses should operate with a certain amount of integrity and pour back into the community."
Absolutely
That's unfortunate. But local governments will have to do something if they want to see something change. They will have to.
I mean, I guess the question is, and we talked about this a little while ago, the empathy factor. Like, no one seems to have any empathy for the people that are displaced by the lack of services that get cut. Did anybody consider what happens to those kids in Job Corps once you shut down these facilities pretty much on a whim? Because like I said, the date went from June 30th to June 2nd. Pretty much on a whim. Insane. Did anybody have any empathy to think about what happens to these because these are young people. Yeah. We're talking about, 16, maybe a little earlier than that. 16 to 24, a viable age. And to send them back in the world with nothing, and literally
the
key
nothing. Workforce.
Yeah, exactly. These are going to be the older people in another 10 to 15 years that are supposed to carry the workforce. Did anybody think about that? When you defund Head Start, anybody think about what happens to those babies who don't get that literal Head Start before they go to kindergarten, and not have them starting out already behind the kids who have those kind of services? Because I'm a teacher. I see it. We see it. When they get to us and they're not potty trained or they don't know their alphabets or anything or any concept of those things. So now they have to be remediatized and put in other spaces. And now you're talking about defunding those areas. Where's the empathy factor when you displace these people and do away with services that they need? These are not like wasteful services. These are services that create the next wave of workforce. Like, I'm so confused right now. I don't know what the objectives. I don't know what we're doing. But
I want to know how his poor supporters in all parts of the country justify the fact that I know their grandmamas need these programs. I know they do. I know they've had cousins and nephews in Job Corps. I know that they have gone to trade schools. Like, I know that I'm very, very curious how they justify it, how they make it make sense. Because that all the things that you grew up with are not going to be here for the kids that you have.
It's the example that he used when he talked about this. There's going to be some hard times, but we're going to come out victorious. That's playing in the back of their heads. That you have to crack some eggs.
So they don't accept that the hard times are just ours, though. That they're not equally shared hard times.
I mean, in their
head, because a lot of them
is
not having hard times. They ain't having no hard times, not one.
Well, they don't see that. They just under the impression, under the assumption that, we have to crack some eggs.
Yeah, you have to tighten your belts. You and your little pay, struggling to pay your bills, can't go to the doctor, struggling to go to urgent care, which urgent cares are now in trouble. You are going to have to really just tighten your belt. You're going to have to really just eat some really, really hard losses. Not them, but you.
Well, it's been packaged to them that, it's a collective fail. And if you don't know any better and you lived in a trailer park all your life and, this man who seems to be an astute businessman that you've seen on The Apprentice is telling you, hey, it's going to get better. We're going to have to crack some eggs to make this omelet, this American omelet, but I promise you it's going to be delicious once you get it.
That's so the danger of an uneducated population, because you can't tell somebody who's not, you have to know enough to know that you're being played. You have to know enough. So if you don't know enough, you won't even, that's insane. We haven't talked about Adriana Smith yet. I don't know if you're familiar with this case. You don't have to answer that.
Oh, good. Because I don't want to incriminate myself.
But everyone should, because her name has been all over the internet, and it's become a much bigger case than just a Georgia case. Adriana Smith is a 30-year-old nurse and mother from Metro Atlanta who's declared brain dead in February.
Oh,
there's a catastrophic medical event. It was actually during an early case of her pregnancy. And despite her brain death, the hospital, Emory University Hospital, has kept her on life support to sustain her pregnancy, citing Georgia's strict abortion laws. So Georgia passed a heartbeat law in 2019. We talked about it extensively. Everyone talked about it extensively. We were not the only state to do so. But actually, it was enforced after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And it banned pretty much all abortions if there's any cardiac activity detected in a fetus. So this law has had very complex ethical dilemma. We knew it would. We knew it would be complicated. We knew it would be difficult. We knew that there would be all sorts of cases where you'd have to ask, well, what about this? What about that? The entire medical profession was confused about how we're going to deal with this. What is this going to mean for me as a medical service provider? In Smith's case, medical professionals feel compelled to maintain her life support because they don't want to get in legal trouble with regard to the fact that she was in an early part of her pregnancy. Her family has expressed anguish about the situation. They believe that their rights are being compromised. They believe the dignity of their daughter is being compromised. Imagine you've lost your child. They're dead now, and you can't make any arrangements. You can't bury them. You cannot mourn them. There was no memorial. There was no repat. There was no nothing, because she's being kept in an incubator essentially and forced to stay alive because she was in an early part of her pregnancy.
So the baby's still alive.
Essentially, there's cardiac activity detected. That's the baseline. And the family's launched a GoFundMe. They're asking for support. They're asking for more public attention. It is a dark situation to me and to a lot of people. There are a lot of folks explaining, as a woman, how this feels. It feels as though, like, damn, like, even if I'm dead, I can't rest. Like, they just gonna keep me souped up.
Well, the other part is the money. The other part is the money, which we talked about previously. Who's paying for it?
Right, because they've got to be bleeding.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they're private. Well, yeah, and would this have happened in a place where, like, I don't even know how this would have played out in a public hospital, but
this is a private hospital?
Emory University Hospital. Oh. But either way, there's legal consequences for any entity. So nobody wants to get sued, right? And so if you break the law, right, because everybody knows that this woman has a pregnancy, has a viable pregnancy, then what? Then you open yourself up to be sued, and unable to practice medicine, what?
So in the meantime, she's kept alive. The hospital bill, this is Emory, that hospital bill just continues to escalate. When and if the child is born, she has no mother. So now the family has to figure out how to take care of a newborn, which is probably going to fall on the grandparents. And assuming they even want to do it.
Always does.
Or either it goes to adoption, which I'm sure after this, the child is, I'm not putting the child for adoption.
If they're alive.
And that's if the baby comes to fruition. Mm-hmm. I'm not putting, you're not going to want to put the child up for adoption. They kept the mother alive after she was gone. So it's a sentimental value it's a baby anyway, but it's a sentimental value because it's like your mom literally died so that you could arrive. So putting you up for adoption is not going to be viable, but keeping you might not be viable either because we don't know what the family dynamic is. It's like, at the end of the day, again, where's the empathy? Where's empathy?
People who are arguing in support of keeping Adriana Smith in an incubator are stating that there's empathy for the unborn and stating that it is not fair for an entirely separate entity, which is the fetus, to die. And the hospital, as we talked about, they fear liability if life support is withdrawn and it leads to death. But let's be clear here. They know it will lead to death because a fetus is not an independent entity.
Literally.
It cannot survive on its own. So there's no question about whether or not it absolutely will die, which is why protecting the rights of the unborn is only infringing the rights of people who are here and who do have rights because they're autonomous beings. So pro-lifers will say that like even potential life should be preserved
and valued.
I feel that there is a really sad thing about this that feels it's a abortion conversation. It also feels very much like a racial conversation to me. I feel like we are watching this experiment happen in real time.
Oh,
and to me,
everything.
It feels like a Tuskegee essence experiment, like an ethical overreach of let's just see how this goes. Because if women don't even need to be conscious to make them have children, then we don't need Project 2025 and all these incentives and all these, protocols and all this messaging about the family. If we don't need women to comply to make sure that we can have the babies that we want them to have, this could be really good for us. But we're not. Let's test it out on this Black woman's body right here.
Well, again, I'm just confused to his base. It's like every promise he made, and I'm going to refrain from calling them names because I almost did. Every promise he's made, y'all, he's reneged on. The whole thing of government spending and overreach and bringing down the budget, bringing down the deficit. He literally has in this big, beautiful bill raising the debt ceiling. That's one. That you're going to have more money on your paycheck. You probably have less, I'm sure. And the cost of eggs is going to go down. Promise number 2. Mm-hmm. What checklist are y'all checking off that we not checking off? Because every promise he's made y'all, he's reneged on. Like, I'm confused. But it's scary because, according to the book ban, y'all probably won't read the books we've read. But when you look at things like the Holocaust and you wonder, how in the world could a Hitler actually emerge in a society like this?
Yeah.
Like this?
Yeah.
A charismatic leader who discovered that they're that charismatic that realizes I don't have any boundaries. So I'm just going to do what I want to do. And then he gets other people on board to either be too scared of him to do anything, or on board with him and be manipulated to a capacity that they go along with the foolishness. Yeah. This is how this starts.
Yep.
And I always wondered as a kid, how do people sit around and let a Hitler arise in a society? Just like this. This is exactly how this happens. Which we should have got scared when they overthrew the government or attempted to. That moment right there should have been the moment we stopped and said, wait, this is real. Like the fact that you got them to do something that is the unthinkable, that you got a class of people to do this. We should have stopped in our tracks right there and said, you know what? This is a problem. Houston, we have a problem. We have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet here we are continuing to empower him to do things.
We're not keeping track of the promises are going far. I feel like the promises are going very far. They're not being kept in large part, but people are just so it's a shame, but there's just so much built up anger and animosity and hate. It's like part of what this comes down to, I think, is that people really want to belong somewhere. Like people really like the feeling of I'm oppressed. I'm misunderstood. Nobody gets me. And here's this person who I'm not allowed to like and who people just think is such a bad guy. And if I wear my red hat, people, say things toward me. And it just really emboldens this sense of like community that they have. It's so deep. And I feel like I see it all the time because I live online. And I've watched people like slowly turn into these sympathizers and then these, maybe they have one view or something like that aligns and they get a little criticism for it. And they're like, hey, and it just, people really want to feel like an underdog. I feel like it just speaks to this, like, especially in men, it just speaks to this like need of like this tribal acceptance that's offered by the far, far right that there's not an alternative for on the left. Like that there is no home or sense of being special or different. Like there's no alternative for that. Even though everything that was mentioned has not happened, even though the border wall, the big, beautiful wall that was supposed to be paid for by Mexico.
Which Mexico told us to go to hell. They were not doing
and swiftly. Rapidamente.
She didn't even think twice.
There's 450 miles of it now built, funded by the U.S. taxpayer. The fact that he said he was going to, I'm going to slash the debt. Debt has grown by over $7 trillion during his presidency, in part due to his tax cuts, which he said he was going to cut taxes, right? Well, he said he was going to cut taxes. Those taxes were corporate taxes. Those taxes were for the highest income earners that there are. Not for you. Not for you or any of the poor people that you know. He said he was going to repeal Obamacare. He didn't.
Yeah, he
said he was going to impose term limits on Congress. Hasn't. I mean, nothing that he said was going to bring back the manufacturing jobs.
Oh, they're gone. They're gone.
It declined. It has declined since his presidency. So nothing has happened, but people just feel really, really good about it.
Yeah, I don't like the people that were diehard Trump fans. They're still diehard Trump fans, and I'm like, aren't you? Is your 401k
They like to respond
gone?
that way too about anything that you discuss with them, and whether it's well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Trump. It's just almost like the only thing they can say. That's what I've gathered.
Well, we've established that they're not the brightest people in the world, but they're not the not brightest people in the world either. Because there are some people that really have surprised me that are still diehard Trump fans. I'm like, isn't your 401k gone?
Right.
Like,
I know. Look, tell me your 401k.
You were just griping about not being able to buy groceries the other day, and you were complaining about the cost of groceries the other day. Or gas? That was you, right? Because we were sitting across from each other. So, but you're okay with not pointing a finger at the person that should be pointed at. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I love that for you. I love that for you.
I've got to see it play out. I've got to see it play out when you need to retire.
Oh, don't make me think about that.
You're supposed to be set up for retirement.
I'm almost 50, and it's a real thought. Like
the tragedy is everyone should always be thinking about their retirement. That's what it's smart. You enter the workforce, even in your 16 to 24 first jobs phase. Retirement. If your job offers that benefit, if you can set aside some money for retirement, you should save for retirement. Retirement. You're not going to be able to work forever. No one can even think about doing it. It feels like it's like the horizon. It's like the closer you get, the further away it is.
Literally.
It is exactly what's happening. And so even if you make all of the right moves and you make the best possible decisions for yourself, you're not going to be possible to live 90 to 100, God willing, on retirement. It's just not going to be possible. You don't even want to. Like at this point, I'm like, I don't even want to live that long anymore. It's like, with the world going to, I don't even want to live that long anymore. And I hate to say that, but I think I said that from my parents. It's like, what do you mean? Exactly what I said. You guys had Social Security as a safety net. We don't even have that. My 401k could be empty tomorrow and it's beyond my control. No, I don't want to live to be 80 and 90 years old. I'm scared. I'm legitimately scared to live to be 80 and 90 years old. Honestly, 70 on the horizon makes me nervous too. I'm sorry. Like you guys are, my dad just went out and brought like a $80,000 car. And I'm like, what are you doing? Have you not realized what the administration is? And my mom was like, he deserves that. Because we don't know how long we
I'm like, I called my mom. I'm like, I think my mom called me. I'm like, what are y'all doing at the dealership? What dealership? She was at the car dealership. For what? She's like, your dad was getting a new car. You just paid off the Lexus. Are you kidding me right now? And she was like, we know your dad. I'm like, I had to think about it. I was like, well, dad's good. Like he's planned and they live in the country.
And he deserves it. That's
their lifestyle is different. They live in the country, so they should be fine. But I'm just like, are you nuts? Like, have you not looked at the administration? I was like, your dad don't care. And they're fine. Like the houses are paid for. He has paid for. My dad is like cars. So I'm not really worried about my parents. Like they're old school.
I was gonna say, but unfortunately, right? Like the generation we are in now, we are the ones who are not set up as well as our parents
at all.
Our parents, the average earnings at their age, this is not with college degrees,
literally,
was enough to cover a home. A home was 4 times the cost of the average salary. So if the average salary now is around $50,000, the average home was $200,000. It was affordable,
literally, and they paid them off. So they have homesteads.
And so they paid them off.
So we have homesteads in the family because they paid them off and, they were able to live and enjoy it. Us, I don't even think that's going to be a thing. Like the thought of buying a house now is like...
The thought of living to pay off a house. The thought of living to pay off your student loans. The thought of...
It's just not... It's so bleak and it's just so, like, for lack of a better word, it's just really scary I can't even think about, let alone 70. I'm thinking about 50. Like, I'll be 46 on Halloween. I'm like, what is this going to look like in 4 years? What is the world going to look like in 4 years? And who's to say that Pinhead won't find a way to stay in office? We can, you know what? Like I told, I forgot who was here, and I was like, they was like, well, those things can't happen. No. We don't use those words anymore. What can't happen? Because stuff that we swore would never happen has happened. So the thought of him staying in office is a viable thought now. It's like, what if because I feel like he has the spirit of Hitler, that he has that kind of influence. He has the spirit of Hitler. So who's to say that he doesn't manipulate them into doing that? They already kind of did. Manipulate them into doing that. So then we talking about another term. Then we have to call, if that were to happen, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander, then we have to call Obama back. Sir, I know you enjoyed life, but now that you can do more than the terms that you've done, we need you to run, because you would probably win. We need you to come back and run. Yes. I know you don't want to, and we'll figure out some contingency plan once you win.
No, we'll figure out Michelle. Michelle, get on board. This is not because it's really, you know who we're talking about. Here's Michelle.
Michelle has made it abundantly clear.
It is not about you.
Literally.
Truly, it's not about you.
Sorry, we have to call y'all out of y'all retirement. Y'all got to run again, because now that he's made this a rule, now he can be contended. So y'all got to run again. I'm sorry, y'all got to run again.
And even if they don't, the big move that Democrats need to be thinking about is the abolition of the Electoral College. Period. That's where it has to go. It's a winner take all system for most states for the electoral system, but it doesn't reflect how many Americans actually vote for a candidate. Every single American no one will have a good argument to keep the Electoral College. And I think that's how we can get the people on board who did not vote last time. Everybody who was dragging their feet about Hillary and dragging their feet about Biden. And the reasons why we're here, because you didn't vote, we need to abolish the Electoral College. That's how it happens. It disproportionately favors the small states. It literally gives Wyoming 4 times the electoral power than a Californian. Even though they have less than 1 million people versus California, which has 40 million people. Wyoming has 3 electoral votes per 1 vote.
I'm trying to think, how do we divvy this up? How do we divvy that up?
The goal was to make sure that, there couldn't be outsized power, but you already have that. You already have that with the Senate, because everybody gets 2 senators. So the Electoral College is absolutely, it makes it makes only a couple states worth fighting for. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. It makes every other state safe to ignore. States like California and Mississippi. It makes those places completely safe to ignore. If we had a popular vote, that would not matter. And we would not have people who don't win the popular vote winning the presidency, like Donald Trump, who lost the popular vote by 3 million, like prior President George W., who also lost the popular vote. Way back, John Quincy Adams also lost the popular vote.
I didn't imagine.
And this always happens because of the Electoral College. So that's what needs to go.
And per our previous conversation, it stuck in my head. Where is the empathy? And when we start banning books and making moves like that, kids start lacking empathy. What happens to a society that has no empathy? That I can't sympathize with somebody that doesn't look like me or feel like me or operate like me? What happens to a society where there's no empathy? Chaos. And The Purge. We're back here again. The Purge is what happens when people have no empathy. And that's exactly where we're headed, where there's just going to be no empathy in our society, and people are going to be doing crazy stuff, killing each other, shooting each other in the streets. That's where we're headed at the rate we're going. So I don't know. I'm very concerned. I'm very worried. I did not think, and me and older people have this conversation, like the things that we're living through, we only saw on sci-fi. When I was a kid, living in a society where we had to wear face masks because there was literally some airborne disease that was killing people. That was a nonfiction movie in the 80s. I never thought I would live through something like that. Living through a society where there's a president who barely has a high school diploma and hates college. And we discovered now he hates uneducated people too. So he pretty much hates everybody because you're fighting with Harvard and you're cutting Job Corps. So you hate everybody because you clearly hate people that are trying to better their lives, and you hate people who are going to college to better their lives. So you literally hate everybody. Never thought I would live to see this day. Like my 46th birthday in Halloween is probably going to be the best one. I'm going to live it up like it's 99 because who knows what next year is going to look like? Who knows what next year is going to look like? But final thoughts.
No, I just, again, I'm at the Simone Cherie. Follow me, especially if you think you may be the one person who can help us out here. Just one person.
Money. I would pay good money.
Everyone would pay good money. You would be good. You would be taken care of. You would be provided for. Luigi ain't seen nothing yet compared to how much you would be protected.
That part. And my final thought, Michelle and Barack, I'm sorry. But if this kingmaker finds a way to stay in office for another term, y'all got to come out of retirement because y'all are the only people that could be able to beat him because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if he does that, he has to realize now you can be contented with it. It's not just they give it to you. You got to win it again. Mm-hmm. So as much as I love y'all and I'm happy that y'all are enjoying life, y'all have to come out of retirement because y'all are the only two people that can beat him. So go ahead and get your stuff together. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and look at redoing the White House, put your picture back up because that's what's going to happen if this pinhead wins another term, gets another term by some miraculous foolishness in the Twin Peaks experience we're having or the nightmare we're living. But, keep hope because there is some in very small pockets. So keep hope. We will see you same place, same time on the Leadership in Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my co-host,
Simone Cherie.